Hello, I'm Sophia.
Hi, I'm Phoebe, and we're from bamnbeyond. This is the British Asian Opinion Show, BAO, otherwise known as the BAO Show.
So today we are discussing how British Asians react to anti-Asian racism in association with COVID-19. We have asked a selection of British Asians to give their opinions.
So our interviews were conducted in July. Here are some of the context that was given to our interviewees at the time of recording surrounding anti-Asian racism in the UK related to COVID-19. On the 30th of January, Sarah Ng, postgrad student of Sheffield Uni, was verbally abused because she was wearing a mask. She didn't retaliate, however, because she was afraid. On the 24th of February, Jonathan Mok, 23, Singaporean UCL student, was involved in a racially aggravated attack whilst he was walking down Oxford Street. The aggressor said to him, "We don't want your coronavirus in our country." In May, it was published that anti-Asian hate crimes were up 21% in the UK during the coronavirus crisis. Here are some clips from our interviews that we conducted. This is what British Asians have had to say on the matter.
The UCL student, I actually messaged him because I was near the area when it happened. I work near the area of when he was assaulted and discriminated against. And I just, expressed my apologies for what he had to experience. And it made me think that could have been me, It could have been anyone who looked like me.
It does make me quite angry. I get really upset because it's not like I can really do much as an individual other than raise awareness on Instagram.
Well, my initial reaction would be disgust because non-Asian ethnicities tend to group people from the Asian community as one block. So we all seem to be from China, and that's all that we come from. But that's not true.
And it just made me really scared. I remember I was really scared to come home after work every day, especially during nighttime, because I've heard not only from the news, but from people I actually know that they were called names, they were robbed, they were punched.
One time when I was walking home, and I was wearing a mask, and 3 girls actually stared at me and started screaming and then shouting something like virus or something like that. So I don't want to say I feel the pain because obviously it's different. I didn't get physically assaulted, but I think Jonathan, the guy, his name. But yeah, when I first read it, it was just anger and then frustration, and then just don't understand why this is happening to us, to be honest.
Asians are usually seen as quite quiet. They don't seem to speak up for themselves much, and we just kind of go on doing our own things and try not to be affected by what people say about us.
It implies that we're all the same, but we're not. And some of us haven't been to China or never been to China before.
To get rid of racism, discrimination and prejudice, you have to actually speak up and do something about it, which I think maybe older generations don't feel the need to do anything, but I feel like with our generation, we do have the potential to change.
I was out shopping with my mum, and we weren't even doing anything. I was just taking a picture for my mum because she just really wanted a picture. And these two gentlemen just walked by really close and just coughed corona multiple times and then walked away.
There was a lot of people that I noticed would avoid sitting next to me on buses. They would prefer to stand, than sit next to me,
I've had, some comments about, going back to my country, stuff like that, even though I was born and raised in the UK. Actually, when this first happened, I was not in the UK. I was working abroad in France, and I had some comments about whether I eat dog and stuff like that, and whether I like to eat bats, because the news was reporting that the COVID strain had originated from bats.
And like the surprising thing was they weren't white, which I would expect it from. They were both like South Asian. So, you know, other members of the BAME community, you know, other minorities. And I think that's the most shocking thing, that, you know, there are still very anti-Asian sentiments within minorities, not just, you know, within white people, which I've found very, very surprising.
You know, it's actually really hard hearing these things because sometimes it can be from a place of ignorance, but following the pandemic, it was almost like a direct attack at me and my face. Like, it's not because of anything else. They just see my face and they see that I am presumably Chinese and therefore I must have that illness.
You know, do I share my voice? You know, do I stand up for myself in these kind of moments, or do I let it go and find other ways to raise my concerns, to raise like my thoughts, to so in those situations you can never really know.
I talked about it with people I knew, like friends, and I also used my social media account to sort of spread awareness about it. I think I'm not really one to share my own personal opinions online. I rather share sources of information. So, but I felt like I needed to say something about it. So I guess I kind of let it out online on my Instagram, and people responded pretty well. You know, they were very supportive and everything, but it doesn't stop the fact that this happened. And I'm sure it's happened to so many people who haven't really said anything. But I think it is important to talk about it with people you love, with your friends, you know.
I think I would sort of create a dialogue with them, no matter who they are, and try to make sure that they're aware that they're being ignorant in their remarks. Because as an individual who lives in Britain, I've never been to China. And to say that I'm a coronavirus would be a big mistake. So I think creating dialogue and making sure that they're aware that not everyone that is Asian is from China, or has been to China, or has friends that are from China. So I think spreading this awareness to people who are making these remarks will hopefully make them second guess any future remarks they hope to make.
It's like how you could say, like when 9/11 happened, like everyone was targeting Muslims, for example. It's just the same case of like coronavirus, since everyone's heard it came from Wuhan in China. So everyone's just suddenly wanting to hate an entire like race of people just because of where it came from, you know?
I guess because the virus originated in China. So people have always sort of lumped all Asians together as Chinese. I'm hugely generalizing here. I know that not everyone does this, but a lot of people, whether they know it or not, they have this preconception. They see someone who's Asian and they might automatically think, oh, they're Chinese.
Yeah, people will believe anything they see from and hear from media. And I think however the government portrays this virus, in a way it's perpetuating the racism towards Asians, and I don't think that's okay.
I feel like with this, it's just about exposure, because I feel like mistreatment of Asians is so normalized, like to the point where it's kind of crazy. Like, if you think about it, if someone like mistreats a black person, they will immediately call it as racism, you know, whether that be like small comments on the color of their skin or outright racial slurs like using the N-word. But I feel like mistreatment towards Asians is so normalized to the point where people don't even realize that they're actually being racist towards an Asian. So people use the C word a lot. And I don't want to say it so I don't normalize the use of it. But people use that a lot, and they don't think that it's wrong at all, when it is actually a racial slur.
But I do think that speaking to those outside of our community where we feel safe to is the most key, because there is strength in like more people knowing, you know?
If you can get it on recording or a film and just potentially shaming them just to show that, you know, this is not acceptable. You might have freedom of speech, but that comes with consequence. So be ready for the consequences if you want to spew that kind of language.
And I think exposure and calling people out on this kind of behavior is the most important thing, because I think a lot of people make a lot of Asian jokes and they don't think there's anything wrong towards that at all. Like, I see a lot of jokes about calling people Ling Ling, or like some Asians referring to themselves as Ling Ling, and I don't think that's appropriate or correct, because what you're doing is you're feeding into this narrative that it's okay to make fun of Asians, because if an Asian person is doing it, then it's okay to do it because they're doing it themselves. It's like, it's a sort of self-hatred, and I don't think that's correct. So I feel like exposure and calling people out on this type of behaviors is the way to go.
Following the interview, we have taken out a few points to discuss today. One of the first points is from Anthony, who talks about how Asians don't vocally object racism/protest in the West compared to other ethnic minorities, or as strongly. I guess you can take the idea of the model minority myth in which Asians are perceived as acting passive and don't protest. Additionally, we also have Benza, who talks about calling out unsolicited behavior, especially the use of words, well, specifically the C word, which are normalized.
Yeah, the C word most definitely should not be normalized. It is a slur. And I feel like people who use the word are not aware that it has racist connotations. If you want to know, the origin of the word, the C word, means like narrow. And it was used to describe the small and slanted eyes, which are generally a feature of East Asians. And it was also derived from the word China and the Qing dynasty, but now it is used as a derogatory term towards all East and Southeast Asians. I personally grew up hearing the word a lot from people, and at the time I internalized it. But now that I'm older and I know the severity of the words, I've had to unlearn the habit of normalizing it, even when it's from other Asian people using it to describe themselves. I would say like it's definitely a form of microaggression.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I've also had my own personal experiences of being exhibited to the word, and I definitely agree that it's so easy for us growing up that we learn to normalize this situation. However, with the given events that have happened this year, I think it's so important for us to unlearn and learn that it's important to call out this type of behavior. Additionally, Adelia has talked about how Asians are conditioned to keep quiet and ignore, and in turn this has led us to being exhibited to microaggressions. One of the examples she gave us was being called coronavirus, which I guess leads to the idea that it's really common for us that sometimes we fail to acknowledge, or I guess it's so common for us to ignore these issues. It has been widely speculated that the origins of COVID is from bats in the Wuhan wet market, and the media outlets have published a few videos of Chinese people eating bats, which has led to this assumption that this practice is common in China. The racist stereotype that Chinese people eat cats, dogs, and bats is extremely harmful to the vast majority of the population who don't eat such things. This in turn has led to racism and uneducated assault. With the government's response, such as Donald Trump's terminology of the Chinese virus or the Kung flu, has in turn encouraged people to engage in racist activity towards Chinese people and even Asian people overall, as they are clumped together.
Yeah, like you've just said, and I think some of our interviewees have mentioned this, Anthony, Lily, Katie, and Natalie have said that people generalize all Asians together, and so it doesn't matter what your actual ethnicity is or what your cultural background is. Asians are being attacked, and they may have been completely brought up in the UK, and they have no link to China, no link to Wuhan. It is extremely hurtful to condemn these people, and it can definitely affect them and the way that they socialize in the future.
Yeah, as we did mention about Asians being easily clumped together, this has led to this overall assumption of a particular race. Like, despite the belief that COVID originated from China, this does not mean that all Asians should be associated with COVID-19. For example, British-born Asians like ourselves, or Asians who have never been to China, or people who are not ethnically Chinese as well. I guess this leads on to the idea of the typical microaggression that we get, which is where are you from versus where are you really from?
Yeah, I think many of us Asians have experienced that kind of situation where people ask you where you really from, and you don't really have an answer to that because you're British, but you're also Asian at the same time. For me, it was so shocking to hear some of our participants' stories when they talked about the microaggressions that they have faced. Some have been intentionally coughed on by strangers in the street. And Steph said that she experienced racism because she was wearing a mask. It is so ironic that Asians in Britain will get criticized or they will receive racist comments regardless of whether they are wearing a mask or not, and while they are trying to protect their health and other people around them. Benzar also said that his mum has experienced racism, and this was directed at her by two South Asian men. And that's quite shocking, actually, that there is racism amongst POC members, especially between like ethnicities that are in such close proximity.
Yeah, I remember hearing about Benzar's mom experience, and I was just really shocked as well. Like, I just didn't understand that as ethnic minorities, should we not be supporting one another rather than targeting one another? Also following on from something that Adelia said, like, I think it's actually quite common for all of us that she herself was also very afraid after hearing all the stories regarding COVID-19, especially the assaults and all the racial slurs that were called to a lot of people. And I know she also mentioned that she personally reached out to the UCL student at the time. And I think that's really reassuring, because I think that's something that we all need to be doing, supporting each other amidst this crisis.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I'm so kind of proud of Adelia for reaching out to this student who was on the receiving end of this attack. And I just think it's very difficult to navigate how you would confront these people who are being racist. I'm constantly reminded that anti-Asian sentiment has existed since way before coronavirus, but the current situation has just made it more evident, and there are more extreme forms of violence and hate. And I think it is so important that we stand up against it.
Yeah, on a more positive note, actually, so following on from the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been an emergence of groups and organizations in support of Asians within the UK. Some examples include BSEEN, which is Britain's East and Southeast Asian Network. BSEEN is a non-profit grassroots organization founded by 6 amazing East and Southeast Asian women, whose mission is to tackle negative stereotypes and to promote positive media representation of Asian people in the UK. Additionally, we also have the End the Virus of Racism, which is a non-profit organization calling for zero tolerance of racism following a threefold increase in hate crimes towards people of East and Southeast Asian heritage during the coronavirus crisis. I guess also something worth mentioning is that one of the members of both of these organizations, Viv Yol, actually created a petition to stop the depiction of East and Southeast Asians in coronavirus-related media. And in turn, this has led to a government debate with our fellow MP, Sarah Owens, which Phoebe will talk more about.
Yes, so Sarah Owens is a British Chinese Member of Parliament, and on the 13th of October, she spoke in a vital debate regarding Chinese and East Asian communities and their experiences of racism during the COVID-19 pandemic. So research shows that a third of images of East and Southeast Asian people in the UK media outlets were used to illustrate COVID-19 stories, even though they had nothing to do with East or Southeast Asia. And the campaign groups that we talked about earlier, End the Virus of Racism and British East and Southeast Asian Network, have analysed 14,000 images in 15 major news providers from January to August of 2020. So she has said that the scapegoating of East and Southeast Asian people is a persistent problem. She herself has received videos on Twitter of people eating animals alive and has been accused of being part of a COVID-19 conspiracy. The fact that 0 Tory members appeared for the debate really shows the lack of their support for East Asians during this time from the government.
I think It just goes to show that the debate that we have seen has brought up so many valid points, and I hope that we can continue to push for these discussions because they are incredibly important. And on that note, I really highly recommend that you check out Shu's video, which we'll link down below, regarding her own experiences regarding racism in the UK. And also signing Viv Yeo's petition if you haven't already, as we have already got nearly 15,000 signups, so that I hope, like ourselves, you can also join us in that petition. Additionally, please go and support the End the Virus of Racism organizations as well as the Be Seen group for more information on this topic and more.
So, if you have any stories about racism that you have encountered, you can reach out to us on social media. Also, if you want to get involved with season 2 of the BAO Show, please feel free to contact us. Our social media is bamnbeyond. So that's BAMNBEYOND. We are active on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and you can buy us a bubble tea on Coffee if you want to support us and fund our future endeavors. Please like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and leave a comment down below.
Also, don't forget on the bamnbeyond Instagram, we also have a filter for the BAO Show, so please check it out and don't forget to tag us when you use it, as we'd love to hear your thoughts on the different topics that we've assembled for this filter. And if you want to come and chat about this topic or anything more, you can also join us for a discussion on our Discord server. And on that note, thank you for watching and see you again soon.
Goodbye.